Okay, so we'll jump in here to the background. Network services programs. It's a strategic program that provides services to virtually every department and agency in the federal government. Been around for a long time under different names, starting with the FTS, so Federal Telecommunications Services, and that's the major contract at FTS 2000 and FTS 2001, and now networks. And we provide a one-stop shop for network and related IT services. So we provide an array of contracts for telecommunications services and solutions to be able to serve and support each agency's telecom needs, whether those are needs that are common across different agencies in the government or whether there's unique needs. And we also provide lifecycle acquisition support so that agencies can obtain the most competitive pricing through pre-qualified vendors and pre-configured vehicles, as well as ongoing support. Just an example of the type of ongoing support is that we provide the business support and systems to manage inventory and billing for telecommunications services. So with the one inventory and billing system, which we provide essentially as a shared service, is more efficient than say every 100 of those across the federal government. So if you think what would happen if network services programs didn't exist? Really every agency would be on their own for meeting the telecommunications and network needs, and of course they're essential. So you're going to have to find some way to meet those. So imagine where every single agency will have to go through the full procurement for this. It wouldn't simply be a task order on one of the multiple award IDIQ or scheduled vehicles. It would be a complete acquisition there. And you wouldn't be able to just go to one of our regional services to get your local dial tone service. You would have to be going on your own to be able to procure that. And if you look at the telecom marketplace, there's only a small number of providers for many of the basic telecommunications services. So to be able to get the good pricing for these services, you need to present a sizable volume of services, and also to have market intelligence to know what the pricing is out there and what your inventory is. So if every agency was doing this individually, then your volume is going to be much more limited. So being able to aggregate the volume across the federal government, able to achieve much better prices. And then when you look at inventory and system support, essentially everyone would have to have their own billing and inventory systems, or rely on service providers for providing that support. Because as we all know, if you're relying on the actual service provider for billing information, you don't really have that checks and balances to make sure it's accurate. Or you would have to go to some other telecommunication expense management service or TEMS provider, but there's the additional cost for that. So that's really the strategic service and value the network services programs offer. If you look at the bottom right there on the screen, that shows some our key contracts in the portfolio. The largest, of course, is the networks contract, as a successor to FTS 2001. You also have our family of local communication contracts or local service agreements, with 3 in the D.C. area being the largest of those. There's Connections 2 for local campus area networking, also equipment and associated labor services. Federal Relay for hearing impaired, and the Wireless Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative there for cellular plans and devices. And associated with the wireless FSSI is the Managed Mobility Program for management of those. And then lastly, we have our SATCOM, our Satellite Communications family of contracts. So that's our family of contracts there. Also, if you look at the upper right there, is a little bit of a savings chart of the savings that we provided through in that particular chart to networks and FTS 2001. And this is really a hallmark of the network services program. Strategic sourcing is a cornerstone of our strategy and the value provided. If you see in that chart, FTS and networks have saved agencies more than $9 billion since 1999, and that's prices compared to best commercial pricing. It's approximately $700 million of savings in FY13 alone. And also interesting is we've seen services procured during networks over on networks. Networks bandwidth demand has increased by more than 8 times since 2007. So FTS 2001 and networks, the bandwidth procured there, 8 times increase since 2007. And also one more interesting statistic. We just got in our first half of the FY14 business numbers, and there's a 13% increase in networks volume, by dollars purchased in there. So we see networks continues to grow. If you look at the type of services purchased, we see an increase in IP services and managed network services. We've seen this trend for a number of years, and also a decrease in the voice services ordered on networks. And so as you see by this service mix here, networks is able to allow agencies to modernize the networks with the advanced technologies. But at the same time, we know that networks will be expiring. So we need to look to the future, what is beyond networks. And that's where NS2020 comes in. So NS2020, it's a strategy. It's not an acquisition. There won't be an NS2020 contract per se. And of course, there's also there's no X in NS2020. It's not Networks 2020. But as I mentioned, networks will be expiring, and that is one of the schedule drivers for us creating the NS2020 strategy. But it really is, it's more than networks. It encompasses the national and regional programs, and it has multiple aspects to it. There is the portfolio of contracts, and this is what I'll spend most of the time talking about. I've already mentioned EIS, a key aspect of that portfolio. It's also defining the procedures for using and operating the contract. And we have a couple slides that I'll talk about that. And the procedures, this ties into our support systems and activities, such as ordering, billing, and inventory. As part of NS2020, we're undergoing a complete systems modernization for use TOPS or Morris, eMorris, the networks and which pricers. Well, our strategy is going to be a complete modernization and integration of systems to support the NS2020 portfolio. And then the last aspect there is the organization. We're moving to an integrated network services programs organization. So there won't be like a national, organizational, and regional organization. It will be an integrated organization. So all of this combined, is improving the efficiencies of our operations. With the systems consolidation, and when I talk about portfolio, you'll see we're reducing contract duplication, and then moving to the integrated organization and consolidation will be improving the efficiency. So regarding, I listed a few of the key goals there. I mean, we'll have flexible and agile contracts, have faster service procurement, planning robust customer support services, and solutions, as well as outsourced and managed services. And of course, continue to provide the substantial cost savings via strategic sourcing and price and spend visibility, along with improved transition support. And also to be able to support federal mandates and initiatives, such as having FSMA compliance, strategic sourcing, IT reform plan, and other federal initiatives. And also being able to promote small business participation and expanded competition. So as I mentioned, I'd like to spend much of the time talking about the portfolio strategy. So we have our current portfolio of contracts. Well, what should the future portfolio be? How do we define the scope? The line's not clear between telecommunications and all of IT. And in fact, we've been we've been approaching this as really telecommunications and IT strategy. So how do you define the scope? Should we have one comprehensive contract or multiple vehicles? We want to have reduced overlap, but we know that some is needed. And how will the contracts work together, and what should be the relationship of the NS2020 portfolio as compared to a broader IT portfolio? So in defining our portfolio strategy, we took a methodical process, what I refer to as a 4D or four-dimensional look. For one is we took a retrospective look, a complete top-to-bottom review or lessons learned, so to speak, of the program and the contracts and the operations. We also took the view of seeing what's being procured by agencies and how it's being procured. And we looked at the provider side. We looked at the supplier marketplace, how they're offering the services, what services they're offering, and how the market is organized. And then the fourth dimension is we look into the future with the forecast. And there's been a trend towards more enterprise procurement, and seeing that trend increasing. Of course, the trend is moving everything towards IP, where IP is a standard platform, and some of the time division, multiplexing, or TDM, and legacy mediums are being much less prevalent with the move towards IP. There's been the growth of wireless and mobility, the growth in ubiquity, and also the move towards cloud service, and eventually, with the movement towards everything as a service. So those are the various trends we've seen, and with all this analysis, this is the portfolio recommendation for the future NS2020 portfolio.